Yeah, it's interesting to think of the learning enterprise as being something that happens in both individuals and in collectives, in organizations. There's a whole field in organizational consulting now called organizational learning. How does an organization learn? People flow through it. How does the organization as a entity learn, remember, solve problems, etc.? Uh, and so I'm including in this the individual explorations, learning and teaching, and collective explorations, learning and teaching. And we want all that to serve wholeness, whole people, a whole person. It's teach the whole child, whole communities. We want communities to be healed and healthy and all participating together in making a good life for the people who live there. Healthy ecosystems, the wholeness of the ecosystem, wholesome futures. Whatever learning we're doing, whatever teaching we're doing, whatever we're exploring, we have this in our wise democracy. We have this in mind and in heart and in spirit, that this is what we're going for. The idea that you are being educated into an ideology, the idea that you are being educated to get a job, there's all these purposes, the idea that we're just giving you our culture so our culture can maintain itself against the onslaught of other cultures. These are all, these are justifiable goals for education, for learning, lifelong learning. Make sure that when you lose a job, you are getting retrained for a new job. I mean, again, there's a place for all this, but that's not the essence of what's going on in a wise democracy. A wise democracy is looking at the wholeness of things and what kind of learning is involved in maintaining and supporting that wholeness, what the people need to know, and at what levels of their being do they need to know it in order to serve their own wholeness and the wholeness of the world around them. So we're seeking deep, nuanced understandings. We're not interested in shallow sloganeering. We're not necessarily interested in knowing who said what about what. I mean, again, all those have their place, but the essence of what we're trying to do when we're designing education systems, when we're pursuing personal inquiries or group explorations, we're trying to understand at a deep level what will enrich our quality of life, an inclusive hour. It's like we want our children, we want our communities, we want ourselves to understand what's needed to create, good quality of life together, and good quality of life for generations to come after us. That's, wholesome life learning. It includes lifelong learning because things always change, so you need to continually learn. That's what learning is basically about. It's about gathering what you need to understand, coming to understanding that is appropriate now. It may be appropriate tomorrow, or it may not be appropriate tomorrow. And if it's not appropriate tomorrow, we need to notice that and learn new things. But wholesome, the learning itself is wholesome. The products of that learning and the application of that learning are wholesome. And the wholeness of the entities that are learning is a major factor in how we go about it. And knowledge, there's so many levels. We can know something in our minds, we can know facts and principles, and we can know things in our hearts. We can know things in deep intuitive ways, and in our soul or spirit. There's so many levels of knowing. So knowledge is not just a bunch of facts that can be spouted out. Knowledge is multidimensional, just as we are multidimensional, and reality is multidimensional. And it also is constantly shifting. Reality change, we change, society changes. The contexts we live in are always changing. So how do we move ahead in our learning? How do we create educational systems and activities? How do we create social learning through the democratic activity, deliberations, information exchange, that operates both with those multiple dimensions and with a recognition of the ongoing evolution of knowledge and what we need to know. How do we do that? That's the inquiry this pattern is addressing. And because we know that is true, because we know in order to cover the ground, we need each other. We're going to be learning from each other. We're going to stimulate each other. We're going to discover new things and new questions, new situations from each other. That's part of the unfolding of knowledge, of holistic knowledge and holistic learning. So the culture that we live in a wise democracy, assuming we can build it, and it exists here and there, and I'm imagining what would it like if it existed everywhere in a society. But you would see people participating eagerly together in realizing in this very alive, vibrant way this learning, this knowledge, bringing this knowledge into being, the activity of learning, the kinds of curiosity and engagement. We would see that alive, and it's all has something important to do with the quality of our lives. The learning itself is part of, to have high quality learning, high quality exploration, to be able to pursue the inquiries that you're personally passionate about, to be with other people who want to learn and know and explore in certain realms. That's part of having a high quality life. So we recognize that, and we provide opportunities for that. And these pattern languages themselves are the product of a particular kind of inquiry, looking for a wholeness in a particular field, and what are the elements that go towards making that whole, making whatever it is into a wholesome enterprise, enterprise that supports wholeness in ourselves and our lives. That's what pattern languages are all about. So the creation of a pattern language, the application of a pattern language, the using a pattern language as a structure for learning, learn deeply about each pattern language, find the patterns that the patterns define. If you find certain patterns appeal especially to you, then that means that you have that role in the larger wholeness that the pattern language is seeking to generate. So pattern languages themselves, including these patterns, this pattern language for a wise democracy, are manifestations of and supports for and vehicles for this kind of wholesome life learning. And so a pattern language-based curriculum, there's a pattern language for a sustainable economy, which I once thought, when I looked at it, I thought, boy, you could pick your major to be a particular pattern or set of patterns, and then the related patterns would be your minor, and your general education would be the whole pattern language. And what would it be like to have curriculums like that, and to be able to work with people who have different centers? The pattern you're working with, because of the connected patterns, that you need to be able to work with these other people too, who are working on those connected patterns. So it's a way of organizing your life and organizing social change activities and transformational activities using the pattern language, and learning as you do, because you'll be bumping into people who are both within your pattern and through the other patterns. It's just filled with possibility. to have a pattern language based learning and teaching. Waldorf schools, Montessori schools, Sudbury schools. These are famous school traditions that are trying to actively and realistically engage children in ways that are more life-serving and whole. Chrysalis is a private school in California that is based on engagement with nature, teach math and science and writing and reading and all that through engagement with nature. Interest-based learning, letting kids, using that in student-centered learning. These are things that help kids learn what they want to learn about. And if you create learning environments that tap into, what's your passion? What is it you really would like to learn? You don't have to stuff things down people's throat. I mean, there's stories of kids who didn't learn how to read. They're like 7 or 8 years old. They don't know anything about reading. And then they discover, because of the educational context, that in order to do something they really want to do, they need to be able to learn. And suddenly they're able to learn to read in a couple of weeks. It's like, it's mind-boggling when you tap into the energy, the curiosity and intentionality of a kid. If you track their interests rather than here's what we want you to learn. So that's a whole nother branch of it. And the active learning and experiential learning, like get your hands dirty, live into the subject matter rather than just hearing a teacher or learning theory. We're engaged with things. 4-H is a head, heart, hands, and health. It's a holistic framing. It started, I believe, in the United States, 80 or 100 years ago, and it was based in helping kids learn how to be healthy farmers, kind of. But it's expanded to include all kinds of things, and it's expanded around the world. And there's millions and millions of young people, from kids up into youth, who are engaged in 4-H. Is another way of more holistic learning, and it is also experiential, active, hands-on kind of stuff. Eco-pedagogy is a field, an emerging field that is teaching. It's I guess Chrysalis would be an example of that. We're teaching everything, but the logic underlying everything we're doing in it is learning how to become partners with the ecological world, and the things that we are studying help us do that. The ways we are studying help us do that. Khan Academy is an interesting one. It doesn't specifically fit this category, but one of the things that's particularly powerful about is that it's student guided. The student is, they're studying a particular thing. They're trying to get a particular amount of knowledge, gain a particular skill, and they do hear a short video lecture about that realm that they're studying, that piece of it, and then they do exercises, and they finish that section when they actually know the material and can use it. It's not that you get a C and get passed on. It's like you learn it, and you learn it at your speed. And if you're having difficulty, it becomes really clear. Teachers where they're using these videos and various stuff that supports teachers, they can spot where somebody's having trouble really easily and come over and help them, and they can afford to help them because everybody else is busy working on their own. But you could also make it into a collaborative thing where it's not the teacher that's helping, it's some other student who is way ahead. You say, hey, Charlie, can you come over and help Jack, work on this? So there's all sorts of ways to use it. But when you actually need to learn certain specific skills or facts, the Khan Academy is useful, even though it isn't more, writing essays and stuff like that. It's not open-ended. It's channeled towards specific knowledge, but it allows students to learn at their own speed and to help each other in specific ways. And of course, apprenticeships. You are helped to learn by somebody who knows, who's already a master of some skill or some area of knowledge. And then we move to the larger social, get out of the explicitly educational frames into how does a community or society learn? And deliberative democracy is a key piece of this. And I would like to add to the deliberative democracy vision and field the idea of iteration. That we are deliberation on a particular subject. We can get very educated about it and learn about it and do good work in that. But then things change. So it's the need to include in our visions and our concepts of deliberative democracy, the iterativeness of doing it again, of having output from one deliberative activity become input into another deliberative activity. So that's one way of a society learning, or community. And Open Space and World Cafe are designed to mix and match people in ways that use their diversity in explicitly learningful. People are always learning in Open Space and World Cafe and in dynamic facilitation. All different. They're all different processes, and they offer learning opportunities in different ways. But it is extremely hard to walk out of an Open Space, a World Cafe, or a dynamic facilitation session the same way you walked in. They're designed to draw out and stimulate and nudge you in open-ended, learningful ways. And you could say science is a way society learns, but to be wholesome life learning, it needs to be socially and ecologically responsible science. We're not just isolated finding out whatever we want and finding out things that will empower us against the larger world or against the nature or the reality or our opponents, whatever. We are learning things that will allow us to be more whole, be in more wholesome relationship with each other in life. And so that direction in science, that particular kind of inquiry, fits very well in the concept of wholesome life learning.